Today, let's talk about intimacy. Let's get intimate together. So, what even is intimacy? We hear about it, people talk about it, and then you experience it. And sometimes you're like, that was intimacy? That was intimacy? Or you have a moment where maybe from the other person's point of view, it wasn't intimacy, but it has this like the most intimate moment that you've had. Intimacy is not sex. Mm-mm. Intimacy is not necessarily this, like bleeding all over someone as though like that's you opening up and being vulnerable. Intimacy is something kind of different. And I wanted to talk about the way that Access Consciousness describes intimacy, because when I heard it, it really resonated with me and it got me to look at, where am I not being intimate with myself? And where am I keeping intimacy away from others in my life that maybe I'd really like to have that intimacy with? I'd like to have that greater communion with. And again, that doesn't mean it equals sex. It could be a friend of yours that you'd like to have more intimacy with. It could be coworkers, and increasing intimacy with yourself and with the people in your life can create not only a greater sense of communion, which is so much like that beyond this reality kind of communion with someone. But I've noticed for myself, intimacy with others can give me more of myself, actually. Because to be intimate with someone, you have to be intimate with you first. So what are the elements of intimacy? Let's kind of talk about them in the way that Access describes them. So there's these 5 elements, and when you use these 5 elements, it actually creates great intimacy in your life in all sorts of ways and with yourself. So the first one is honor. And now that's a whole nother universe too. So what is it to honor someone? It's kind of to treat someone with regard. So if you're looking at intimacy with yourself and honor yourself, like, do you treat yourself with regard? Do you disrespect yourself? Do you recognize the greatness of you or the greatness of someone else? That's that. To honor someone else is to actually recognize the greatness in them. It's to not function from expectations of them, and to not have that for yourself as well. So to really honor you and honor someone else. And you might have your own sense of what that is uniquely as well. So that's one of the elements, though. So how much honor do you actually have for yourself? How much do you honor the people around you? And if you're only honoring others, then you're missing a huge piece of intimacy, which is honoring you. And what you'll notice is that if you can't have intimacy with you, then it's really hard to have it with other people. So, honor, vulnerability. So we talked about that bleeding heart. That's not vulnerability. Some people try and prove vulnerability by like exposing those secrets, exposing those things that like they know they shouldn't talk about, and they're proving how vulnerable they are. But that's not actually what vulnerability is. Vulnerability is to never put up a barrier, a wall to perceiving, to knowing, to being, or receiving anything from the person you're with, from any place, and from yourself. It's the ability to be totally present without a point of view, because your point of views are those barriers. There are those walls. So if you're having vulnerability with yourself, you're never putting up a barrier to who you really are, to what's really going on for you, to what you're really aware of. You're being totally vulnerable, even with what you truly desire. I see so many people in the world, and they can't even get clear on what they would like to have as their life because they're not willing to be that vulnerable. Maybe they think it's going to be ugly or bad, or they're ugly and bad, and so they want to put up the wall so they don't see it. But being vulnerable is, you see the good, the bad, the ugly, but you don't judge it as right or wrong. It's just, oh, that's interesting. Huh. And just being present with it. That's vulnerability. So you can have this vulnerability with your partner, with your family, with your coworkers, with your dreams, your desires, your wishes. You can have that vulnerability with the earth, to have no barrier between you and this gorgeous planet that we're on. That will create greater and greater intimacy. And now there's allowance. So we just talked a little bit about it with the vulnerability. Allowance is really that no point of view. Allowance doesn't mean tolerance. Allowance doesn't mean you allow people to walk all over you and you're a doormat. Allowance is actually, you're still being present with everything and everyone, but you just don't have a point of view about it. You're not making it wrong. You're not making it right. You're not lying and agreeing with something, and you're not resisting or reacting to anything. You are in that space of, oh, this is just an interesting point of view. It has no relationship to you personally. It's just an interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. And you can actually use that and say it over and over again. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. I like to use that to kind of diffuse when I find myself going into the wrongness of something or into the rightness of something. Okay, interesting point of view. I have that point of view to get to this space of allowance. And you're just kind of like, oh, all right, this is what's going on right now. Cool. So another element of intimacy is trust. To trust. Trust used to be such a big thing for me. And I used to think that trust meant that if I had an expectation of someone, no matter what, I knew they would fill that expectation no matter what. So I could trust someone if I knew 100% that they would never fail my expectation. I could really have that blind faith in them. What I realize is, one, that isn't even very kind to people, because we're all doing the best we can with the tools we have available. We're always changing. We're choosing in every moment whatever it is that we think is the best choice, whether it's a good choice, a bad choice, a right choice, a wrong choice. Those are just interesting points of view, right? So to trust is actually to not have blind faith, but to know that the person, including you, is going to just do what they're going to do. They're going to be exactly who they are. So if you want to trust that someone is not going to cheat on you, but maybe you met them and they cheated on their partner with you, to trust that they're not going to cheat on you is kind of bizarre. How much awareness do you have to cut off for yourself to try and trust that? It's really just knowing that they might cheat on you, they might not, but you're not trusting they're going to become someone else, or trusting they're going to hold on to an expectation. Right? So trust is really knowing that you know, and knowing that others are going to do whatever it is that they think at that time is the best thing for them to choose. I know it doesn't feel like trust. It's kind of like No, but I want something to hold on to, like as if trust is this solid reality, this solid thing that you can just never put your attention on again. But what if it's not that way at all? What if trust is more about being willing to truly be present with what is and not having an expectation of something different occurring? What if trusting you is a willingness to really perceive, know, be, and receive you, where you don't have to necessarily change, but you can just be in that knowing, in that receiving, that being. And that is trust. It is not, I trusted you because I had an expectation that you were going to fulfill. And when you trust yourself, it's not that you've decided to trust myself means I always have to have the right answer. I always have to do the good thing, the right thing, the righteous thing. Trusting you is being in that presence and trusting who you are. Get us that space of intimacy. Wow. Then the last one we have is gratitude. And gratitude is a superpower on its own. It's the place in which you're so grateful for someone showing up in your life. You're grateful for having them without judgment. You're grateful for them because they did something necessarily. You can be grateful for their actions, but how often are we just grateful for someone for just being? How often are you grateful for you for being? Just grateful that you woke up in the morning, grateful that you chose to embody here on the planet, grateful for every gift you are to everyone around you, to the earth, whether they even notice it or not. Gratitude is one of those miraculous things that the more you have it, the more it grows. And then it grows more, and then you acknowledge it, and then it even grows more. So how much gratitude can you actually have for yourself? Because when you don't even have it for you, can you truly have it for someone else? And gratitude melts judgment. So when you're grateful for you, it's really hard to judge you. And now when you take all these elements and you actually bring them together, that is a recipe for this exquisite thing we call intimacy. And what a treasure to have that, even if just for you in your life, to really every day look at honoring yourself, every day looking at trusting yourself, every day looking at having total allowance, total vulnerability, and growing gratitude for you. And then from there, exploring it with other people. Wow. What a beautiful space of communion and total contribution you can be from there. Because those things, those anti-intimacy elements, they shut down contribution. They shut down what you can receive. They shut down what you can gift. The more intimacy you're willing to have with yourself and with others around you, the greater the gift you become and the greater gifts you can receive. That includes the earth, that includes consciousness. You can even you could even play with this with your business and having intimacy with your business, having intimacy with your, if you're writing a book or creations. Do you have vulnerability with it? Are you actually being vulnerable with what's true? What is going on here? Are you honoring it? Are you honoring you with it? This is just like the beginning of exploring intimacy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and you could ask every day to grow the intimacy you have with yourself and with other people and with the earth, and see what shows up. Are you willing to have such communion and such like this nurturing closeness, even with your own being, with your body? What would the world be like if more of us had this energy? And you being willing to be it with you actually invites everyone that comes within your range to having more of that too. More intimacy, which creates more communion, which creates more contribution, which creates more possibility. It just grows this garden of beauty. If you like this video, please do click that like button. I know it just takes a few minutes, but it really creates so much for the channel and helps us grow. And I would love to grow this channel beyond anything I ever imagined possible. So thank you for your contribution to that. And I'll see you in the next video.